Mr. Stein.
Mr. Stein. Oh, it's that kind of show. I didn't know. Okay.
No, no. I
Okay.
mean, I didn't want to call you like Joel Bear or anything like that. I felt like we needed to get to know each other in the next few minutes before I got all pet namey.
No one I ever dated, this is true, came up with a pet name for me. And now I'm sad about it, now that you mentioned this.
That's really sad. Okay,
It is
well,
sad.
that's I don't know how I can fix that, but
Well,
just know that I appreciate you.
okay, that's all I ever get. That's good. Okay, I'll take it. I'm used to it.
Joel, first of all, I love the fact that your show has a theme song. I think I
Oh,
need a theme song in my life. Who did the theme song?
so I'm obsessed with theme songs. And
Yeah.
I had a show briefly on VH1 called Hey Joel, and I got the Fountains of Wayne to do one of the best theme songs ever on television. But this, I believe, is the best theme song ever on a podcast.
Oh,
Are you familiar with Jonathan Colton? Um,
yes.
yeah, Joko did my song. So that's why it's so good. I know. Why did I get him to do I've known him since we were in our 20s, and I sent him a very coy email telling him I would love for him to write my podcast song. And he immediately said yes, which shocked me. And then I directed him towards didn't direct him. I asked him if he could possibly write something that would explain the somewhat complicated idea of our show. Like Sherwood Schwartz would write a song to describe Gilligan's Island or the Brady Bunch. So in that style, he wrote a song that does so much work for us, because in the original like pilot, yes, we did a pilot for a podcast.
Okay.
I had to explain what the show meant up top, and then now that we had the song, I never had to waste a bunch of time explaining the show.
It's brilliant. It's very catchy.
It's my favorite thing. I was obsessed with theme songs as a kid.
Yeah. I feel like I mean, I do some of these on podcasts too, or most of them. And I call it bacon bits. And I feel like there's a whole bunch that could be done with that. And I feel
Yeah.
like I need to get some sort of song now.
Can you write music?
I'm actually a singer, so I
Oh my
probably should
God.
get on that.
What are you doing? You
I
haven't
don't
written
know.
a theme song?
I know. I've been busy getting ready to talk to you and come up with pet names instead. I don't know.
So well, there's no even like a little bit you've written for Bacon Bits?
I haven't even thought about it. I'm sure there would be some sort of oinking, possibly like a, I don't know.
Bacon Bits. There has to be some bit I mean, just a
Yeah.
little Paul Schaefery kind of intro into it you could do, right?
What's Paul doing these days? Maybe he could write it. Anyway, I digress. How did you find, how do you find your stories of the week? Because,
Oh,
I mean, the
well,
thing
that's the
is
hard part.
yeah,
It
there's just
requires
so
reading.
little to talk about out there because there's just nothing going on
Well,
in the world.
we don't do any news.
I know.
Honestly, we don't. We don't. That we think my whole pitch for this show was I think people are doom scrolling the news on their phone. And I think this is honestly unhealthy. My mom watches MSNBC and CNN all day, and I think it's making her a really unhappy person. And I think it's a fake depth that people have, and all they know is US politics. So I'm 51, when I first moved to New York, I'd go to these parties and people would walk up to you and somewhat threateningly say, "Did you read that story in the New Yorker?" And then you'd have to say yes, even though you hadn't. And then they would start explaining the story to you anyway, even though you told them you read it. So, so what I've done is I've taken these kind of really weird, complicated stories that we read in The Atlantic or The Verge or Rolling Stone or all these different great magazines that still do these stories that someone took like 6 months to report out, that are really weird. Like I just talked to a woman who wrote this crazy story in Los Angeles Magazine about this weird sect of Mormons who are still polygamous and really racist, and they're also they also basically are a mob. And one of the things they do is bilk money from the government. And this one guy who was like a PhD chem guy, who's like the smartest guy in this Mormon mob called the Order, teams up with the guy who runs the Armenian mob here in Los Angeles, in Glendale, and they bilk the government for $500,000, and then it all collapses. But they're all stories like that. They're sort of complicated. Someone spent a lot of time figuring out, and then we get them on the show, and I talk to them, and they explain their story.
First of all, if you're racist, why are you teaming up with the Armenians? Like that
Well,
right there is just
well, yes. So one of the problems was with the Armenians had some dark skin, and that was not making them happy. But what was not making the Armenians happy was the Mormons were taking child brides. So they
Wow,
found
six of
that,
one.
yeah. So they weren't natural friends, but they worked it out, which it's a bit of a buddy cop story, or not cop, it's a buddy story.
Wow. You also spoke with somebody who's been on Tinder for 10 years.
Yeah, that was the cover of New York Magazine. It's a really good writer. She's really funny. Named Allison P. Jones, came on the podcast, and she's been on Tinder 10 years straight. She's never been on a date. She's never dated anyone for more than 5 times in that 10-year period. So she knows more about dating than anyone, I think, in the world. Yeah. She's
She
had the
could probably write her own program for like, you know, code.
not if the code is to date someone 6 times, but if the code is just to date, then she could write it for sure.
Well, isn't that really what Tinder's about? Is only dating a few times, and by
Well,
dating
that's
I'm using air quotes.
Well, that's the thing. She had trained her, or it had trained her, is probably more accurate, to think of all of her needs as being on demand. So, like, I want to have sex, swipe. I want to, like, go out tonight, swipe. I want, like, she didn't, like, she still wanted a boyfriend, but in any one moment, her immediate needs were kind of like satisfied by Tinder.
That's crazy. I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but
Tinder
it's
became her
crazy.
boyfriend, in essence. Yeah.
Wow. Psychedelic frogs,
See, this
psychedelic
is,
toads, I should say.
yeah. So there's a, I still like talking about these stories, even though I spent all this time on the phone with these people and already recorded these. Yeah. So our second episode, which is already out, I think our
Three,
fourth
I
one comes
think.
out tomorrow. First three
Yeah.
are out already. There is a doctor in Mexico who got addicted to crack and then got himself off of crack by smoking the venom from this toad. Um, and so he then becomes like the evangelist of smoking toad, and he goes to, this is a real sentence of facts, that is, he goes and gives a TED talk at Burning Man about smoking toad that becomes kind of viral, and he becomes the rock star of toad venom. So many people, more people have smoked toad with this guy than anyone, and several of them have died in his care. It's a pretty crazy story.
Toad Venom also would make a great band name. Just,
That's a fantastic band name.
yeah, maybe they could write my theme song.
I feel like Beavis and Butthead's band would be called Toad
100%,
Venom.
100%. So, I mean, like you said, you have these 3 episodes out that are just these incredible stories. How do you find them? I mean, obviously this was a cover story. The Tinder one was a cover story, but like, what piques your interest and you think I need to delve into this and spend some time with this person talking about it?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. There's a bunch of producers who uh, know how to make a podcast I work with, and we spent a lot of time talking about what makes a story of the week story. And to me, I don't like murder, and there's so
Mm,
many long, complicated murder stories, and it's not my thing.
right.
So it has to be somewhat complicated and very surprising. So I'll do a mob story if there's some weird Mormon sect that you wouldn't expect, and they work with Armenians, which doesn't make sense. But I won't just do a mob story. So it has, and I think it's kind of a lot of the same qualifications that some of these great magazines use to determine what a story is. Um,
Sure.
so it has to be surprising and complicated, and even if it's a little dark, it has to be sort of fun.
Wow, that sounds like my dating history, actually.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
So complicated, sort of fun, and what was the third thing?
a little bit of dark, little dark,
Yeah, a little
little
dark. That's right.
dark.
Oh wow, you've done well
Fine.
for yourself.
Thank you. Um, what has there been a story that you have found? You're like, oh my gosh, I really want to delve into this, and everyone around you was like, no, no, this, we're not doing this.
It's a good question. Um, Not yet. I definitely, they're definitely saying you can't just do stories about sex. So that's been a bit of a pushback, but I think they're right. So I haven't objected.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, they usually ultimately, I mean, to be fair, a lot of those stories have an interesting twist in it that
I agree. And
trigger the human mind of, wait, what?
yeah, and they're also often about sex, which I
Yeah.
like, the sex stories. Yeah. So the twist is also good though.
What do you hope that people get out of this? I mean, did you do this for sheer entertainment value? Are you doing this
No,
for news and entertainment? I mean, what is your goal in this?
like everything I do, there's a humanitarian purpose. And so I really do feel like there are these rich, complicated stories about the human life, about about just about life. I don't know why it's a human life. Some of them are about animals. We actually have one about animals. But
Wait, it's not
instead,
like animals and sex though, is it?
this one does not involve sex at all. No, I'm
Okay,
not
good.
interested in animal sex.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's where I draw the line. No, I think there are these. I think people have really simplified life down to like yelling about politics, and whatever disaster happened yesterday. And I think that's really not just siloing people, but I think it's making us simple in a way that I think isn't great. I think staring at our uh you know TikTok accounts all day is
Mm.
simple. And I have always I think people are happier and I think they're more interesting and I think they're more empathetic when they embrace complexity. And these are complex stories. There's not like a good guy and a bad guy and someone to get angry at. And you don't walk away saying, we need to change this about our government. I think you walk away thinking, oh, people are complex and we should like have a little more empathy for people. So, like any good storytelling, whether you're reading a novel or listening to these really long, complicated stories that we unfortunately sum up in like 30 minutes, I think you walk away feeling better, not worse,
Yeah.
and for good reason.
Is there a story from your past, from your childhood, that has stuck with you that maybe was the catalyst for why you wanted to do this? Like you heard something in passing and you're like, are we just going to touch on the fact that you just kind of dropped this bomb of a story and then just glossed right over it? Is there something that you heard when you were younger that kind of has stuck with you?
Are you a Freudian? This is a very interesting tack you took. Do you want me to cry? Is you just trying to get me to cry?
I'm trying to be like
You're looking for
Oprah
depth?
part two.
You really are. Wow. No, I think I read a lot as a kid. I was not very social. In fact, I'm still doing a podcast in my closet. So yeah, I read a lot, and that was my way into learning about other people compared to actually talking to them. So I think this fits in with that. It's why I wanted I mean, I wanted to become a reporter because I loved writing.
Mm.
But what I learned, I remember I've done a little sitcom writing. I was in a sitcom writer's room, and like by week 3 of being in a room all day and just talking about stories, I realized I missed reporting. That what I that even though it makes me anxious and uh, I hate going out and doing it, every great story in my life not involving my family is from reporting and seeing the world. And every time I do it, I get a little bigger. Not just not in confidence, but just bigger as
Yeah.
far as my understanding of myself, of the world, of the people around me. So yeah, I just really appreciate people who go out in the world with kind of an open mind and find out what's going on and what motivates people and the details of it.
Your scope gets bigger.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, I think my scope gets bigger. Just like having a kid really widened my scope because you it's like watching the most boring show in the world every day until the details get so rich that you just like start to see things through another person's brain, which is so different. So different.
I love it. Well, speaking of your family, I mean, what does your family think about this endeavor of yours?
My family is immature, and my family
Yes.
knows that I go into a closet to record a podcast, which is both pathetic and, in my opinion, leads to homophobic jokes, which I shame them for.
I think your family and my family would probably get along really well
Yeah, but
because
you're
my
recording in some beautiful, I don't know where you are. You look like you're on You're on a cruise, clearly.
It's,
There's a porthole behind you.
it would be a mirror.
Uh,
It's my guest bedroom slash office.
oh, wow.
Yeah,
Is it
thank you.
nautically themed?
Well, I did, it's my little jest is it's naughty pine wallpaper. So,
Oh,
you know,
that's what's going on.
thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm not, we just met, but you, it looks like a nice room. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I come to Portland a lot. That's all I'm saying. I'm just leaving that there.
Well, you'll have to go farther than Portland. Come up to Washington.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where are you?
It's totally fine. On the peninsula of Washington.
Oh, wait, a peninsula. Oh, the little part that drags down from the very top.
Yeah, like the
No
little
one, no one's ever talked to me about that.
about the peninsula.
Yeah, I never think about the peninsula.
Well,
That's hurtful. I'm so
okay.
sorry.
So Joel, like Forks is, from Twilight.
No, I know what you're talking about.
You've never heard of Twilight, the movie, the books?
Oh, that's the vampire thing
Yeah.
with the children, the hot teenage
Yeah.
vampires.
Just to let you know, I've never actually read
Okay.
one of those books or seen one of those movies because I know that vampires don't actually sparkle, but it was set in Forks, which is only a little, hour and a half, 2 hours away from me. So if you ever want to write about vampires, come on up.
That's on the peninsula.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Not quite.
It's 6 of one. So, what other things do you do besides sit in your closet? Because I feel like you're a man of mystery. You've been a
Oh,
talking head for, I love the 80s, which, by the way, I also love the 80s.
oh
Uh,
yeah. That's
yeah.
why you like my theme song. Yeah.
Yes, because it is very like retro-y, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. What what made you an aficionado on the 80s to where they were going to be like, hey, let's record him talking about the 80s?
That's a great question. I was in the building, I think was my main qualification. I was making that aforementioned show, Hey Joel, for VH1.
Sure.
And I somehow scammed Time Magazine into not noticing I had a second job with a second office a few blocks away. It was like a sitcom. I was running between two offices, hoping that one of them didn't know, as I held two jobs.
Oh,
And I was in the building, and I would go on TV for Time, on the CNN or Today Show or whatever it was, to talk about articles I'd written. So I think that was good enough. Like, I knew how to let someone put makeup on me. And that VH1 show, it was just like one of 100 types of, of TV appearances that I figured no one would see. And that was the only one people did see. I don't think anyone who worked on that had any idea that it was good. At least, I don't know if that's true. I had no idea. I just kind of went in and talked and walked out 10 minutes later, and everyone thought it was my main job. Literally, I never met any of the other people on there. It took me an hour to do all 10 years. And then people acted like that was my main job. And I literally didn't get paid. And I wrote a column years later because I started doing a lot of those for like E and VH1.
yeah.
So I called a bunch of people, like, I think I called Mo Rocca and a bunch of people. I was like, hey, we should organize and demand to get paid. And to the person, every one of them said, I do get paid. I had just never asked to get paid.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah,
I
it was
actually
very
talked to
funny.
Mo Rocca the other day.
Oh, I have his old Mobituaries producer is making my podcast.
He's fabulous.
He's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a story from your past when I was going to say when you were an actual journalist, but that
Yeah. No,
sounds
that's
terrible
accurate.
because you
Yeah.
are still
I
doing it.
still write articles, but
Yeah.
probably not as many as I was. Yeah.
Yeah. So back in the day when you were
Yeah.
being a, full-time journalist, is there an article that you wrote that you are the most proud of?
Everyone asks me that, and the answer is no, but I've learned to make things up to please people. The truth is, the one I'm most proud of wasn't even that good. It was just challenging, right? So sometimes the things we respond to are just like, you have to write the cover when the year turns to 2000, and every bureau reported to me, and I walked in at like 5 a.m. after New Year's, and I had a stack of like 300 pages to read, and I just had to synthesize that in a few hours, and it went to the printer. And I remember I'd sent because it was Y2K, I'd sent a reporter to be on an airplane because people were worried the airplanes would go down at midnight. And I sent someone to be with someone who, a family that prepared for Y2K for like years, as they like sat in a bunker with their millet and watched the world not end, which is sort of interesting. Um, yeah. So I'm kind of proud of that one. That's not like the most interesting one or the one that people, the one, the one that I've written that people remember. I don't know. It might be when I invited George Clooney over my house for dinner for a Time magazine cover, and that kind of freaked people out because I don't think anyone had ever thought to invite a celebrity to their house instead of doing it somewhere else. And so I
Hmm.
cooked dinner for him with my wife, and oh, and then some alarm went off in the house, just started beeping, and I tried to ignore it. Um, and then
Solid plan.
he got focused on it, and he'd spent part of his life as a handyman, which wasn't just a facts of life thing, but he really had. So he made me go under my house and get this ladder, and then we went into my attic, which I'd never been to and never went to since. And he was with a flashlight in his mouth, and I luckily I videotaped this because we were kind of drunk and it looked crazy. And it turned out that right under my kitchen table was one of those what are those alarms? The carbon monoxide alarm was beeping. It just needed a new battery. And eventually he figured that out.
Oh my stars.
Yeah, he saved our life. We could have been dead from carbon monoxide if not for George Clooney.
See, to me, that's a very interesting story as well.
I should have started there instead of the Y2K thing. I have a lot of regrets.
What is there a story out there that you have tried to do and you've tried to contact the person? They're like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't.
Oh, sure. Yeah, lots of those.
Yeah. Why do you think there would be a block? Why do you think they would not want to talk about something that they poured so much time into?
Um, oh God, everyone has different reasons for not wanting to talk. I'm more surprised at how often people do want to talk.
Really?
Yeah, my old boss, Walter Isaacson, wrote a book on reporting that starts with him being very young, maybe right out of college, working for the paper in New Orleans, and they sent him to the house of a family who just had their son killed, shot to death. And he does not want to go. And he gets there and he's like, I'm gonna go bother a family whose son just died. And they invite him inside and I talk to him for hours and show him pictures. And it was just, and it took him a while to process why this was happening, but it's really cathartic for people. Like we think our brains are a black box and we're just and by speaking, we're simply kind of pressing play on a record, to play what's already there. But that's not what's happening. We process information by talking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really cathartic for people. People like to tell their stories. It's the same reason people like to go to therapy or talk to their friends. So that's been the most interesting part of reporting.
Is there a family that you met in all of your reporting that you actually still are in communication with because it was just you felt connected to them somehow?
Yeah, but oftentimes it's the opposite for the very reason that you're
The
a real.
opposite is a restraining order.
No, no,
So,
I'm sorry. The opposite is they stay in touch with me.
oh, gotcha.
So
Okay.
what happens is you spend time with people and they tell you their stories and you're really interested. You're not faking it, but you're
Right.
particularly interested because that's what you're there for. And they feel that, and you probably told them nothing about yourself, but they've spent hours telling you about themselves. They feel connected to you afterwards. So my there's a guy who still calls me. I like him a lot. I'm happy to talk to him. My last book called In Defense of Elitism, Why I'm Better Than You and you're better than someone who didn't buy this book.
Fantastic title.
I was pretty proud of that. We I after the Trump won the first election, I was a little freaked out and I found the county in America the highest percentage of Trump voters, and I went there for a week. Um, and one of the kind of the most ornery guy I met down there, um, we kind of bonded, and he still calls me every few months. It's been years now. He calls me every few months vaguely tries to convert me to Christianity, but mostly just tells me what's going on in this town of Miami, Texas. Yeah,
Wow. Vaguely. Did you send him your Mormon story? You should send him your Mormon story.
I will. He this church in Miami, Texas, where I went while I was down there for a week. Um, they print a little pamphlet. It's this tiny town, so it's this tiny church. They print this little pamphlet to give to the congregation every week, and the back page has a list of people they're praying for. And this is years later. This is I don't know if this is my most proud uh, accomplishment, but they list like the president, first responders. These is who they're praying for, and then anyone who's lost someone, and then me. I'm there every week. It's been 5 years, and they're praying for me every week, and it's not working.
How do you know it's not working?
Trust me. Look,
Sure. Joel, I just think you're awesome, and I would love to just pick your brain again someday. And
bacon
I
bits,
know you've
bacon
had.
bits.
Feel
That's where we'll
free,
do it.
feel free. I know that you've had George Clooney over.
Mhm.
I do have a carbon monoxide detector. I could put some bad batteries in it, and if you wanted to come over sometime, I'll cook you and your family dinner, and then you can change my monoxide. It'll be full circle.
This is a weird cosplay, but I'm into it. I'll be
Sweet,
honest.
sweet. All right, buddy. You take care of yourself. And when do new episodes of Story of the Week come out?
Every Thursday. But do people care on podcasts? They just like look at the podcast and see what's there, right?
Well, no, they just want to know like when it comes out.
Do
Like I don't
they?
want. Yeah, of course they do.
All right.
I
Well,
need to know when things happen.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like everything's on demand now. It's not like you tune in on this day. You just go check it out, see what's there.
Yeah, but am I going to check it out on a Tuesday or a
Yeah,
Thursday?
there'll be old ones there. You won't know.
So great. All right. Well, be well. I'll continue praying for you as well.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
So, I
We're
know.
achieving a mass, no pun
It's
intended. So thank
pretty
you.
great.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. All right, sir.
So nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joel Bear.
Oh, that's all I wanted. Why couldn't
have,
Clooney do that?
have a good one.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.